KNSS News Time, 7:33, almost 7:34, and our guest this morning is Kansas Lieutenant Governor Mark Parkinson. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you?
We're doing just fine, and as we've reported here before, and it's been common knowledge, you are working on wind power in the state. Kind of taking that as a project that you're spearheading. Tell us, give us an update. What's been going on with that?
Well, we've had a lot of exciting developments. Kansas is actually the third best state in the country for wind power. I grew up in Wichita, and as all your listeners know, we are a very windy state. Unfortunately, we had not taken advantage of that, and so going into really this year, we were very far behind in taking advantage of our potential. But that's been quickly corrected, and we have a huge number of wind farms going up in Kansas right now. By the end of this year, we'll be only the seventh state in the country to have over 1,000 megawatts of electricity from wind. So we've had a lot of activity.
Now, for folks who are not familiar with wind power, you're not looking at as that's not going to replace all the other forms of non-renewable energy.
Well, what it's going to do is it's really going to be an addition to the current energy that we have, and by adding it to the current energy that we have, it allows utility companies to really avoid building additional baseload power. So Westar, for example, decided that they would build 3 wind farms, and as a result of that, they postponed for at least 10 years the decision to build a new coal plant. Wind in very, very good locations operates about 40 or 45% of the time, so it can't completely replace coal or nuclear, but it can certainly add to what's out there, and it can allow for the prevention of building new coal or nuclear plants.
So how many wind farms do we have currently operating, and how many are really on the books, Lieutenant Governor?
Yeah, we have 4 wind farms that are operating right now, and we have 4 additional wind farms that are under construction right now. Those will all be completed by the end of 2008 because there's a federal tax credit that expires, and so the developers are working very quickly to try to get those all built by the end of this year.
When you tell me this can generate so many watts, for a layman, I have no idea what that means.
I understand.
How many houses would that?
Well, let me put it in another way, because the numbers are actually pretty convenient. In Kansas, we use 10,000 megawatts of electricity. By the end of this year, 1,000 of those will come from wind. So we'll be at about 10% of our electricity from wind by the end of 2008.
That's pretty doggone good, isn't it?
It's remarkable. When the governor was elected 5 years ago, we had 1% of our power from wind. We entered into 2008 with about 3%, and by the end of this year, we'll be at 10%. So we're really sort of leading the country on this now.
How about resistance? Still finding people who just do not want this in their backyard, I'll bet.
There's really two groups that oppose this. One are folks that don't want wind in the Flint Hills, and we agree with that position. We think that there are plenty of good places in Kansas where we're not going to have to go in the Flint Hills and perhaps mess up the prairie in that beautiful area. And we sympathize with those folks. The second are people that just don't want wind farms right next to their homes, and we also agree with that. There are plenty of very good places to put wind farms in Kansas that are out in the country and not in the Flint Hills, and those are the sites that we're looking at.
Yeah, if you don't believe it, just get on 54 and start driving west for a few miles. You'll see some wide open spaces. Something that I've been seeing on the national news that's kind of interesting is out in Arizona they're starting some big solar farms, and I guess they're really not cost effective right now, but that should be another augmentation, shouldn't it?
Yeah, solar is amazing because just a little bit of the power that comes from the sun would be more than we need to run electricity for the whole country. The problem is that solar is about 3 times as expensive right now as regular forms of electricity, and the reason that it's grown so slowly is compared to wind is that wind is almost now the same as traditional forms of electricity in terms of price. Solar is about 3 times as much, so the activity with solar has been very, very small, and to be honest, it'll probably continue to be small in the future until they figure out a way to bring the price down.
You have more meetings planned and still working on this, I presume?
We do. We have a wind working group that's actively working to bring as much wind power as we can to the state, because not only is it a clean fuel, it provides lots of payments to the farmers who have turbines on their land. We think it can create lots of jobs in terms of factories building the wind blades and turbines, and overall it should be a terrific industry for Kansas.
Well, thank you for this update. We might check in with you in a few weeks and see what's going on again.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Lieutenant Governor Mark Parkinson, our guest this morning, talking about wind power and how it's being developed across the state of Kansas. Let's